It can be frustrating sometimes, if we're paying attention, that the details we most long to know are simply not included in the Gospels. When it comes to the earliest, known as St. Mark's, the economy of expression can make things trickier still. Whoever the writer was, his style was short and sweet, which makes his account all the more enigmatic. He doesn't go in for stories of a miraculous birth with angels, stars, and wise men. Instead, he begins with the punchline: the beginning of the gospel of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. Those are his very first words. This is what it's all about. What matters to this author is Jesus' astonishing public ministry and how he might then be identified as the chosen one promised by the ancient prophets. Whoever this Mark was, he is like the knowing audience at a pantomime yelling out, "Behind you!" at the ignorant characters in the midst of it all, who really just don't get what is actually going on. But he still wants to set down in writing the story of Jesus from the beginning for those who were not there and to give them essential eyewitness evidence. His story begins in Geordieland, the area around the River Jordan and Lake Galilee.
He's a canny enough lad, our Becca Simon. Though he were in pretty bad order just then, and I don't mean fishy for once. I had my doubts when the marriage were forced to arrange, but the old man, he said he's a hard worker. It's a family business, our generations, solid as a rock. He were a champion fisherman, wi' Andy, his brother, but well, he were a bit jumping in with both feet were just what he did. Except this time, why, jumping out, that were the matter. Becca, she were livid when he said what he'd done. What about the bairns? How would they manage? Oh, he looked proper sheepish. Then it turns out Zebedee's lads, they'd jumped ship too. All on the say-so, some fella from Nazareth that never set eyes on afore. We didn't know then. No idea. Seems how we just picked them out as they were fettling the nets and he were going by. Why, when Becca told me, he never seen her so upset. She called him all the names under the sun. Mind, if Andy were on board, there must have been something pretty special about this fella. If I said things were a bit tense around the house, that's an understatement. And Simon made himself scarce. He were following fresh master round like a little dog. Wi' all that ganning on, I suppose it were no wonder I took sick. There'd been something ganning round. Our town were that close-knit, you know. Folks were dropping like flies, the old ones specially. I couldn't taste nor smell out. Had a sore throat, a cough, and feverish, hot and cold, sweating and shivering. Me head, it was thumping like rheumstones on a wash day. I took to me bed. Honest to God, I thought I were finished. And what would Becca do then, with that great lump of hers off on some religious caper? Well, he'd gone to synagogue regular, but this were next level. If I were to be gone too... I don't really remember much about that day. Delirious, they said, but at some point the lads must have brought Jesus here, perhaps to sweet talk our lass make it all right. Becca says She gave Simon a proper mouthful. You cannot bring him round for supper with Mam practically on her deathbed. She was scared and furious. So Simon makes our excuses. Due to staff illness, the kitchen is closed until further notice. Ha ha! Why, doctor, we're not far away, but Greek speaker, and too dear for us. It were probably too late anyhow. Becca said that Jesus asked to see me, and she were too dumbfounded and desperate to argue with him. So I felt a cool hand on my brow. There were a soft voice that seemed afar off at first, the words unclear. But the pounding has stopped, just like that. Words started to make sense again. Time to get up now, Miriam, he says. It was like I were a bairn again. I opened my eyes and there he were, leaning over me, smiling. Made me think of me old da, getting us little uns up in the morning. And right behind him, there's Becca and Simon exchanging glances, astonished. First time she'd looked at him in days. Why, I was straight back to work. Felt grand. Becca, this is no way to treat a guest. The captain of our ship was back at the wheel. It was as if we'd always known him. Yet it were different somehow. Began to seem clearer why the lads had joined him. And later, all them people at the door, I'd never have believed it if I'd not seen 'em. How did they know? How did they know? Small town, grapevine, I suppose. And Jesus, he went round, calm and methodical, like he were hauling in nets full of people. Not for himself, mind. Our Simon were not the one that got away after all. We were all of us caught. Hook, line and sinker.
Jesus arrives then almost out of nowhere in Mark's version of events. After he's been baptized by John in the Jordan, in solidarity with those whose change of heart has turned them back to God, he immediately sets about recruiting his core team. From here, those chosen apprentices might not look so very promising, yet all bar one would prove successful in the task unfolding before them. Otherwise, the whole enterprise would quite simply have sunk without trace. But theirs was a sacrificial calling. It was going to cost them. Participating would, however, benefit more than they could have imagined, and far beyond their own families. 2,000 years away, being just an average follower of Jesus seems to involve fewer sacrifices compared with those lives utterly upended. But opening our minds to the God's eye view Jesus brought still means that we have to live differently right now. The way we treat others, our impact on the environment, how we pray as we voyage through life, our courage, integrity, tenacity, all should be affected by this encounter with the mysterious Jesus. Thanks to Mark and the other good news tellers and all those who've passed on Jesus' story, in longhand or short, more than a few fishermen and their families have actually concluded that it is really preferable for the whole world not to be the one that got away.